Hey, and welcome to WriteHive conference. We are here with all these wonderful people, and this year is packed with sessions for writers, writing professionals, and publishing industry professionals in general. WriteHive is a nonprofit serving the writing community with free and inclusive resources and events, programming, connections, and more. And this 2024 conference brings you this session. How to write when you don't want to, because y'all know that you want to, but you don't. And I'm Mags, also known as Maggie, as you see in here, but you can call me Mags. Any pronouns are okay with me. And I'm the moderator of this panel. And I'm joined by our lovely panelists who will bring their insights on this topic. So I'll let them introduce themselves. Chelsea, you're up.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Gayden. I write YA and adult sci-fi and fantasy, and I guess that's it for my introduction.
And I am Beatrice Winifred Iker. I'm an Afronautian storyteller, hiker, tarot reader. I am a Reasoning Award finalist and a proud Voodoo Knots alum. And I'm represented by Chelsea Hensley at KT Literary.
Awesome. And I'm Jill too. I'm an Atlanta-based writer of YA and adult sci-fi and middle grade contemporary. My debut novel, The Dividing Sky, it's always mirrored, so I got my arrow right this time. The Dividing Sky is a young adult dystopian romance that comes out this October from Penguin Random House. And it is the story of a girl who uses her neurochip to illegally deal happy memories, and the handsome rookie determined to arrest her. That's coming out this October. And together, the three of us, Chelsea, Beatrice, and I, are Afronauts of the Afronauts podcast. We provide tips and encouragement and community for aspiring Black speculative fiction writers.
See, aren't they an awesome panel? I'm so honored. Okay, I'm fangirling aside. Is that the term? That's the term. Okay. We're gonna start off this panel with just to get us all on the same page. Pun not intended. Why wouldn't you want to write? Who
Why
wants to
wouldn't
take
you?
that first? Or we could just make it a conversation. Go for it.
Why wouldn't you want to write? There are more interesting things pulling you in other directions, media, social media, and otherwise. The story could not be pulling you. It could be like you're in a weird place and you're like, I would rather do anything else than do this right now because I don't want to keep trying.
Yeah, sometimes life is just like lifing. That usually is it for me. It's like life is lifing. It's like writing. What?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's always emotional. I think like we all appreciate at this point, writing and being in the publishing space can be kind of an emotionally fraught career that we've chosen for ourselves. So there's a lot of self-doubt involved. There's, pivots, there's rejection. And sometimes it's just hard to pick yourself up off the floor and say, like, I'm going to write today. Or like, I still believe in the story, despite a bunch of people telling me that it wasn't a good fit, or I still believe in my craft, despite a bunch of people telling me they couldn't connect with the voice or whatever it is, right? Sometimes you're just not feeling it and you want to be moving forward and making that progress, but you hit a wall. Yeah, and then sometimes there's just other emotional stuff. For me, we'll talk about this a little bit, but I recently had a period where I had a bunch of deadlines, so I had to write contractually. But I was experiencing like a loss in my family. My like child, or my not child. I'll start this over. We can cut this and just repeat. I had contractual obligations to write, but we lost our family dog, and so we were in a period of like really deep mourning and grieving and like very, very sad. But the deadlines were the deadlines, and I could have moved them, but I decided that it was going to kind of help tether me to something moving forward in the future. So those are a few different reasons.
No, those are all valid, very reasons I can relate, and I'm sure many people who write would also relate. So our second question is when it paces. Okay, never mind. Cut that. Our second question is, what are some reasons why you might have to write when you don't want to? Jill kind of already went into this, but I'm curious what others have said, and then we can come back to Jill.
Oh wow, I was also gonna say contractually obligated. That is usually it for me. if I'm contractually obligated, then there's really nothing else I could do at that point. I can always move deadlines, and I am a big advocate for moving deadlines, if need to, or not, just because you feel like it. But yeah, contractually obligated.
What about you, Chelsea?
The only other reason, I can think of besides like a contract, like you know, so other people are depending on you, is that maybe it's something that just like needs to get out during that time period. I know sometimes some of my stories are inspired by like the specific period that I'm like whatever emotions I'm going through, and I want to channel those like as authentically as I can. So I just kind of I have to get it out while I'm feeling it, or otherwise it's like maybe it's something I don't want to tap back into later. So it's like I'm just trying to like, I don't know,
Yeah.
free
You
the
don't want to
feeling from
forget
myself.
also.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the only other reason I can think of, like for yourself, if not for someone else.
I love that. Yeah, and on the business side too, I think there can be lots of reasons besides contracts, right? So if you want to time a book to go out on submission, around a certain time period, you kind of have to work backwards from that goal. And that's, at the end of the day, that's your personal goal, but it matters to you. So you can kind of work backwards from that and try to hit that deadline. I also, and for me too, I had other business reasons for trying to hit the deadline that I had earlier this year. So like I said, under any other circumstances, I would have just pushed the deadline, said, hey, I'm not in a space where I can write right now. Can I come back to this later? But this year is a little bit crazy for me with my debut coming out, and I already had made the choice that I wanted to front load as much of my writing as possible to leave headspace for promotion and other stuff, from July on through October and beyond. So yeah, I knew that I wanted to kind of be done drafting and having that creative energy taken by writing by the end of the first half of the year so that I could have the second half to really push the debut. So
Wow, strategy also.
just trying to stay above water here.
It's smart. Yeah, you
Smart,
don't want to be drowning in like deadlines while you're planning the debut launch.
The book coming out. Yeah, so trying to minimize the sources for panic as much as possible.
Yeah, I've not had to do that yet, but I assume I'm gonna be the same.
It's hard. Yeah, it's yeah. Well, I'll let you know if it works out or if it was all for nothing.
Just like, don't do it.
Comes back a year later.
Yeah.
Staying the course of the questions before we fully go out into outer space, like our backgrounds. Which strategies help you write when you don't want to write? I'm actually curious about this too because I need some advice, y'all. I'm struggling over here.
Well, I look oftentimes to like other media. For instance, I recently I was writing a YA spooky book, and I was having a hard time getting into it. And so I started watching Wednesday on Netflix. And so like that was a way for me to like engage with like that energy, like that
vibes.
Like with those vibes without having to put up a lot of like output. And I find oftentimes that when I'm having a hard time inputting is what needs to happen. So taking a step away from writing and saying, let's input other things that may or may not be at the same vibes, but like anything that could like jog creativity is what I do. So like I love doing like if I'm writing something that's set in turn century, I will watch Gilded Age. If I write something like something like that where it's like I love watching things that evoke those same emotions, same time periods, same aesthetics as what I'm writing, so that even if I'm not outputting, I can input, and maybe when I do finally output, it will be, I will have filled my well in such a way that it comes out in a way that I like. So that's what I do.
I think for me, like having some form of accountability, like whether it's like, telling my husband, like, hey, I'm not going to watch like this show that we're binging. I got to pause on it for now because I want to get this out. And then I might be like, after work, I might be like, oh, should we watch the show? And he's like, don't you got it right? And I'm like,
Oh,
Don't remind me.
the ultimate
Oh,
betrayal.
get
Right.
him, get him.
But to me, accountability, like that helps me, like having someone who can be like an accountability partner. I like using like Asana or ClickUp or some kind of like project management system to kind of like help me track like the progress when I'm working. So like that's also helpful. Again, like the accountability. So like usually that's the strategy that gets me, like some kind of accountability outside of myself, at least seemingly.
So I was like just about to hit my stride with drafting when we had that loss at the beginning of February. And I just like I hit a brick wall and I was like, I have no creative energy. Like I don't even want to like come downstairs. Like everything, like it's just not happening right now. I was fortunate or unfortunate that I actually had a few different deadlines that I had kind of stacked concurrently. One was to draft a new novel. And then the other was copy edits for a book. And so I was lucky, actually, line edits, excuse me. But they were pretty light line edits. So I actually decided to like flip my schedule so that I was like, I don't have the creative energy to come up with a new world and new characters and new dialogue from scratch right now. But I can do line edits, right? I can respond to comments. I can tidy something up. Like I can give that amount of work. So I ended up taking 3 weeks kind of in the middle of drafting and kind of spaced it out so that I had 3 weeks of just moving another deadline off of my plate that I had more emotional energy for. So that worked out really, really well for me. And then I was able to get back to drafting. And okay, so I feel like I like unlocked something that I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share with you guys. Beatrice and Chelsea know the breakthrough I had with drafting this spring. It was wild. Okay, so in the past, when I've gotten stuck or just like, felt tired but wanted to keep going, on a scene level, just like, I don't feel like writing tomorrow. Instead of writing the whole scene, sometimes I would just write the dialogue, right? So just write it like a TV script or whatever. Just like character name, colon, this is what they say. I've done that like on one-off cases before, and it's kind of helped me get through like a day or two where I'm kind of low energy. But in this case, I was so low energy and I was really hitting this like moment of frustration of just like, I have this story in my head, but I'm not writing it fast enough to get to the fun parts, and I just feel really impatient. And so what I did was I spent 10 days writing the whole story just in like script form. And my only rules that the dialogue had to be actually what was going to be said. It couldn't be paraphrased or kind of summarized. The dialogue had to be real. Everything around it could be, stage directions or like a quick note about what the character is going to feel or description of the setting or something in like a quick little blurb. So it was kind of like a zero draft. But like it wasn't the difference being that the dialogue was 100% accurate. So I spent 10 days doing that. I ended up with 21,000 words or something like that at the end of it. Something like maybe 30-ish, something like that. Yeah, 30 something. And then I was able to go back. So I had the whole story. I loved it. I loved the dialogue. I thought things were flowing. And then I went back to the beginning and I fleshed it all out. And I had all the dialogue and I knew the fun things I was getting to. And I had some notes for like scene, description and other things, interior monologue, that sort of thing. And I wrote 71,000 words in 45 days. I wrote the whole draft in a month and a half, like after spending 10 days doing the 20,000 words. And I've never written that fast before, like ever. Like, believe me when I say, like, that is wild for me. And it's a good clean draft. I mean, in a way, it almost was like going back through and writing a second draft, right? Because I was able to clean things up and rearrange scenes at a very low commitment level. Yeah, it was wild. I don't know if it will ever work again for any other story, but for this one, it worked really, really well. So that is my tip.
Oh my goodness. That reminds me of a time that we'll get into in the comments. Um but yes, I agree with that method.
Yeah.
All right. So, we talked about why we wouldn't want to write. We talked about that, but we have to write. And we talked about some strategies on how to handle that. I wouldn't say writer's block, but like that thing in the way. So I had a question, and and I sourced some of these from community people, so it's not just me who had this question. Is do you plan your stories? Do you discovery write? Or a mix of the two? And how has that influenced your approach to writing when you don't want to write?
Definitely a mix for me. Like I have to have some kind of loose plan. Like I could never just like sit at a blank page and go. Like just the thought of that, like it makes me feel like what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I usually have like some kind of loose plan, and then I kind of discover within that plan. And as far as the second question, influencing me when I don't want to write, I think I kind of like let myself lean more into the discovery when I'm not feeling it, because sometimes the plan feels like too restrictive, and that can make me like not want to write, not feeling motivated. So it's like let's deviate from the plan and just see what happens, and then that might get the creative juices flowing again.
I want to say it was, I hope this is wrong. I want to say it was Emily Henry. I was just watching an interview with her where she said that when she gets stuck, she like sends her characters on an errand. She's like, go get some bread. And that usually helps her figure out like, what to do with them and like, what the underlying, core of that scene or that dynamic is.
I actually really like that. Like send them on like side quests.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll figure
Yeah,
it out when you go
great.
back
Like,
from your side quests. But
yeah.
side quests are really good for character development.
Yeah.
You can use that side quest information and put it in your main story.
Definitely.
But for planning my stories, I talk about this often, but I heavily plan my stories. I oftentimes have 15 to 20 page synopses before I start writing, before I write a single word. And so once I start writing, I already know everything about the characters, their arcs, the stories, vibes, everything. So when I don't want to write, I can always jump around. To Jill's point, actually, I know Jill just talked about how you started doing that. That's why I love doing what I do, of having such a long form synopsis, is because I can go and cherry pick which scenes I want to write depending upon my mood, depending upon the output level I want to do. Do I want to do like a lower impact scene that's like really easy to write or that I know can flow easy, or do I want to do something that's a little meatier? And when I have my synopses written out in such detail, it makes it so easy for me to just go in and write little pieces, and so it's easier for me. So I love it. I recommend it. If that's something you enjoy doing.
Quick sidebar. I'm just curious. Have you never been like betrayed by your story? Like, has your story never been like, actually, no, your synopsis is wrong? Has that never happened? That's
They're
so
like,
interesting to
I don't
me.
know what you mean. Like, I don't know.
No.
Or maybe like discovering something about the character that you hadn't planned. That's never happened? Or are you just so
sometimes,
detailed?
I'll get like additional like background information while I'm writing, but the main beats, like the main character arcs, all of that, like I planned everything. Like the character profiles that I do are so detailed anyway, with like their birth, I do their whole birth charts, and that dictates their personalities. So I can go into like that impacting their arcs. So it's like, but so no, I really.
You just know them so well.
I know them so well. Like I know them. I know the stories so well. You're not gonna surprise me. It's just not gonna happen.
Like, you are my children.
I've
I know
decided
you.
what's gonna happen, and that's that. Like we're not gonna have a conversation about this. Like I've already made those choices for you. It's like this is not up for discussion. Yeah, but like that's also how I view my writing. Like I know how other people do it oftentimes, but like I think that's part of the journey I've had with my own writing, of like I spent a lot of time romanticizing writing, and for me that slowed me down a lot, and it gave me a lot of anxiety because I set expectations for myself that were impossible to meet. And so the long synopsis also is a way for me to make sure that I always know what's going on. I'm never surprised. My expectations are always like realistic. And so I love it. I love it so much. more people, I think, should use birth charts for character profiles, for character arcs, for learning more about your characters before you even start writing, or while, whatever. Like, I highly recommend it.
We need a guide. You need to put a
So,
guide
yeah,
together.
Yeah.
I was about to say, like, that sounds like a talk for next year, if that's not already a talk for this
Yeah.
year in
It
some
should
way.
be. We should all
Absolutely.
come back and talk
The
about it.
workshop. That'd be so cool.
Topic for
Um,
next year, chosen.
Yeah.
There you go. See, you're hearing it live now. Well, record it now.
Lock it
We're
in.
going to see
You're
that
gonna
submitting
record
this
it
as a topic
now.
for next year. No, this
Um,
is great.
I love that. I'm totally with Beatrice on this. I think I'm a planner. And even since this book that I drafted, I did have the synopsis drafted beforehand. I think, you know, it was under contract, so we kind of pitched it, said, here's the story, and they said, great. So I had a few months of just like percolating on the story in the back of my mind before I finally sat down, but like I was pretty sure that was the story. And so I think, you know, for me, like having that plan, and I think Beatrice is the same way, like it's not just a synopsis. Like I know that I've seen your spreadsheets when you when you
Plural spreadsheet.
yes, multiple spreadsheets with multiple tabs. When you are outlining and like writing your synopsis, you have those little like bits of dialogue that come to you, right? You're like, this is going to go in this scene, this is going to go in this scene. And I think those cookies are really important to kind of help you kind of go down the path of like, oh, I can't wait to get to this scene because this dialogue is here. You know, for me, like I've heard people say that they feel like their synopsis like locks them in. And I totally get that. For me, like I just have to go back and punch up my synopsis. It's like if I feel like concerned about my story, like my story is wrong, and I need to fix it at the synopsis level and then let that guide me there. But that's usually like a sign for me when I'm feeling like, ugh, like not loving, you know, this decision or this part of it when I tell it out loud. That's a sign for me that like I need to fix it somehow. But yeah, I trust my synopsis. I might like add little bits of detail, or if I feel like a character arc or plot point isn't like shown or demonstrated enough, I might add another scene to kind of like beef it up. But like that turn or that character arc is still the arc, right?
That's actually that's to summarize. That's actually a really good point of, well, if you plan your stories, how you're going to approach it is like, okay, that's not really a obstacle. That's more of, I just didn't figure this out yet. So that's something to keep in mind out there, rewriters
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
watching this
And I think, you
recording.
know, discovery writers and pantsers, like they get there too. They just get there a different way, right? But I think at some point we all know what it feels like to be like, like this isn't quite right. And the question is, do you think of that ahead of time, or do you figure it out on the back end when you're revising, or even as you're drafting? So
No, that's completely fair. So now we've gotten the bow of the no, we don't have the bow of the
this is a
planners.
constant. This is a constant battle.
We have a conversation. The debates are in the next channel over, y'all. So our next question is, how do you, which we kind of got into this with like the whole, this is not working, but this is kind of working, so maybe I just need to dig a bit deeper here. So how do you discern the difference between you needing a break from your writing versus just typical procrastination? You're like, one more episode of Wednesday, or one more episode of Dragon Prince, that sort of thing.
For me, it's how it is impacting me emotionally. If there's like a dip in my emotion, then it's usually time for me to take a break. But if it's like stagnant energy or like frustrated energy, whatever, then I want to do something with that energy. And it doesn't have to be writing at that point. It could be something else. But I think the difference for me is like if there's a dip in my emotions and I'm like, okay, then I need to take a break, no matter how short it is. But if it's just like I'm anxious, I'm frustrated, I want to get this done, but I don't know how, then I can take that like frustration and do something with it. That's how I know the difference though.
For me, well, I was gonna say my first answer was you're asking the wrong person, because I when I'm on deadline, like I go. But I will say, like, my going looks different from a lot of people's going. Like I build in breaks, right? Like I'm thinking about like the goal is to not burn out. The goal is to make this sustainable, and to not say like, oh, I'm on deadline, so I'm gonna eat like crap and I'm gonna not sleep and I'm gonna not work out, right? Like being on deadline is still a part of your life. Like you're not like pressing pause and like then coming back when you're off deadline. Like you still have to make it sustainable, and remember that like if you're gonna make this a career, deadlines are going to be a big part of your career. So like every deadline can't be a fire drill, or else your whole life becomes a fire drill. So Maggie, uh-oh.
That's healthy.
Yeah. So I try, I mean, like, it's still a lot of work, right? And I still get up when I don't want to, etc. But I'm also like not watching a ton of TV. I'm also going to bed on time. You know, like I treat it like the marathon that it is in a way. But for me, you know, again, like I don't write every single day of the week. I like, you know, take at least one, I write in the mornings, so I take at least one morning off. And like spend that the night before like watching TV or something, you know, that actually like fills the well. Um, but yeah, I would say like, you know, when I'm not on deadline, it's much more relaxed and much more casual. Um, and you know, I think that what helps me is before I even start a project, whether it's drafting or whatever I'm doing, edits, I set like a timeline for myself where I build those breaks in and I say, okay, like this timeline has breaks built into it, right? And so if I deviate from this, unless something crazy happens, like I get sick or you know, like something, you know, a life thing happens, I should be able to do this and be able to you know, stay on track and like keep making progress moving forward. And that kind of helps me say like, okay, like you didn't create the like crazy timeline. This is not super aggressive. This is manageable. So manage it.
Yeah, I kind of also like the project management approach. I kind of like, that's kind of what I do for work too, like project management. So like using some kind of like system where it's like, oh, I see the big chunks, like the different acts and the different things that I need to do to take care of. And also I try to give myself at least like an hour of free time as a reward at the end of my writing time. So it's kind of like, it helps motivate me to get through it. Even if I'm not feeling like it, it's like, okay, so I know I get to, you know, take a nice hot bath whenever I finish the scene. So it's like, so I get the scene out usually quicker than I had planned. But I think
love how
that's,
much you love baths.
I love that. Yeah.
I'm a
I love
bath
that for
girly.
you.
I need them. But sometimes when I do just need a break, it's kind of like, even with all the rewards and every like carrot on a stick that I can give myself, if it's just not working, it's like I know I might just need to like pause, because if all the treats and rewards that I can offer myself are not enticing anymore, then it's like, okay, maybe this thing just like I just need like a mental break from it. So I might give myself like the weekend to refresh.
No, that's completely valid. I think everyone should be rewarding themselves. We all like the gold star back in school. Why are we giving ourselves gold stars as adults?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Something I've recently been doing is like trying to do is like to gentle parent myself.
Oh,
And to like
that's so nice.
be really intentional of like, no, I know you wanted to write, but you're tired. And it's okay that you're tired. I know you're like disappointed in yourself, but like you need rest more than you need to get X amount of words done right now. And I think we should all go back to doing that, to like talking to ourselves in like such like gentle way.
Loving.
Yes. And you know, and that, and even though, and I think you need to, if you're trying to get into especially the traditional publishing industry, where like Jill said earlier, you are constantly dealing with confrontation in some way or another, rejection in one way or another, disappointment in some way or another, upheaval, challenges in one way or another, no matter where you are in the line. And I think we should all gentle parent ourselves more often and just like be intentional, because no one else is going to do it for you, I assure you. I assure you.
Yeah, amen. And you know, one thing that I've been telling myself recently, it's like, you know, whenever I get like a query rejection or any other kind of thing that's like disappointing, it's kind of like, what does it take to keep me going? Like, I think knowing myself, knowing like this is something that I want, and I'm past the point of like, you know, I'm not as what's the word? The career is not as much of a like fantasy as it was when I first decided I wanted to be a writer. And now it's kind of like my motivations are completely different than they were when I first started out. And it is more of like a discipline and a craft, and like something where it's like, I'm not just like trying to prove something anymore. It's something that I want to pursue for my own reasons. I think it's helpful to just take care of myself and kind of know myself better and treat myself better. I think that's like the approach I've been trying to take going forward.
Yeah, and that actually leads into our second to last question. We do have one final question, but we'll get to that when we get to that. which is, what are some lessons you've learned from pushing yourself to write when you don't want to? Because it seems like some of us may have learned some things that we didn't expect to learn.
Yeah, I think my biggest lesson is that it's not an all or nothing, right? So like you can still make progress, and it still counts as writing if you do like a big like brain dump, or if you just do the dialogue, or if you just think through like when you're taking your shower, like or on a walk, like you just think through a scene and kind of like map it out, right? Like that's all progress, and it's all thinking that has to get done at some point or another. So you can ease into it and be gentle with yourself and know that you're still making progress, even if it's not like literally adding to your word count every single day.
I think one lesson I've learned is that like there's always something that I have to express. Like there's always something inside that I want to get out. So even if it's not necessarily like what I was planning, like maybe if it's like I have a project planned and I'm not finding myself working on it. Sometimes I just like say, okay, well, it's journal time. Like I'm writing, but I'm journaling because there's something I want to express and I'm not getting that with this project. So like I'm going to spend some time journaling to get whatever it is out. So then maybe I can clear up some space for the project.
For me, I know I said this earlier, but not romanticizing my writing or my writing time and thinking that I have to be in a certain clothes or like certain vibes. There has to be specific like things happening. Otherwise, it's not either. Otherwise, like I cannot write. And I think also freeing myself of the thought that like I don't have like part of the issue that I used to have was feeling like if I can't do it this way, then I'm not going to do it. To your point of all or nothing, Jill, of like, I need to, for me, I need to always be able to have space, that creativity, and be able to like not pigeonhole myself into, well, this is the only way that you can do it. If you're not up by this time, if you're not, whatever, then that's not going to write. You're not going to feel good. It's not going to whatever. And I think taking away the romanticization of it, taking away the filters, taking away the like of just this is just you and your words, doesn't need to be anything else. And so yeah, that's one of the big lessons that I learned.
I love that. Sometimes you just gotta show up to work dirty, unshowered, with your hair not
Absolutely.
twisted up.
Don't
Right.
even.
Wow, that's so specific, but absolutely, that is
Are you
exactly the
calling
vibe I was
me
going
out?
for. Yeah, absolutely. Show up as yourself.
Yeah.
hmm
Mhm.
Awesome. And this kind of leads into the final question that I kind of hinted at, which is a concluding question, because unfortunately we've come to the end of the panel. I know we're all sad, tears in the chat. Um, so from everything we've said, everything we've discussed, laughed, cried, had very big emotions about, what would you like writers to take away from this talk? Like, what about this topic would you be like, this is one thing I want you to get through your heads and carry with you going from this day forward?
I think I would say like kind of know yourself, like as much as you can, like learn about yourself, learn your tips and tricks, the things that get you writing, the things that slow you down, the things that get in your way. Because once you have like that understanding of like how you work, then you can like work with it instead of like fighting against it. So that would probably be my like biggest takeaway.
I was also going to say self-awareness. So instead of that, I will say, remember that there are all different kinds of writing, and thinking is writing. Like I always tell like my friends, my family, most of my work when I'm like on contract for something, I have to get something done. Most of my work that I do during the day is thinking. I'm thinking of like what I'm going to do, or I'm writing what I think that's not like it's in my synopsis. Like so much of my writing is not, you'll never see it. Whenever this comes out, no one will ever know that I wrote this down. No one will ever know that I had these thoughts. No one will ever know that the main characters, sisters, like whatever. But like it was necessary for the story and it needed to be done, and it was still writing. And I would love people to take away that there are all different kinds of writing. Even if you're not literally typing, you can still move forward with your story. You still have forward momentum.
And for anybody out there who's still working on their first manuscript, I would say, when you finish a manuscript, I think something changes in your brain chemistry. I think there is every difference in the world between, you know, a novel that is 98% done and a novel that is 100% finished. When you type the end, and for the first time ever, you have the full story in front of you, I feel like, for me anyway, like it snapped into such ridiculous clarity that I was like, I know exactly what needs to change. I know exactly what I want to make better. I know what doesn't belong here anymore. I could see the whole story for what it was as a unit, as opposed to these different pages and scenes that I had tried to build brick by brick. I saw the whole building for the first time. And so I would say, you know, no matter how sloppy it is, no matter how, you know, kind of like mishmash, like train of consciousness or stream of consciousness it is, like, just get it done. I wrote my first complete manuscript when my youngest was like in her first 3 months of life, and I was exhausted. And I would write, like, literally, my goal was I'm going to write a page, 250 words every single day, no matter what. And it was like me just like falling asleep in bed, like next to her, well, you know, after like put her back down after feeding her. Like page by page, I finished it. And when I went back and looked at it, the end was garbage. And it was total garbage. And I was like, who wrote this? Oh, right, I did at like 2 a.m. and it's horrible. But I had decided that I was going to finish the book. But having it done made it possible for me to go and edit it. And lots of things happened from that point on. I was able to enter contests and competitions and get, you know, mentorships and that kind of thing, because I had a completed manuscript for the first time. It wasn't where I wanted it to be. We got it there eventually. But just having it done changes the game and changes your competition set. It changes who you are in competition with. It changes where you are in the trajectory. So I would just encourage you to do whatever it takes, page by page, sentence by sentence, just get it done.
And that's such a thoughtful note to end on, especially for me, who's a chronic short storyist and not much of a noveler. So I'll take some of that advice if you don't mind.
Get it done.
So that is the end of our panel. But before we go, I want our panelists to plug what they want to plug, promote what they want to promote, any places that you want to be found. Don't mention the ones you don't want to be found, because people will find you there.
I
So
don't
we'll
really
go.
have anything specific to plug. I'm just on social media at Chelsea Gayden on whatever platform.
Plug the
That's
podcast. Plug the
oh,
podcast.
in the podcast, Afronauts podcast. We also have a newsletter if you want to sign up for that. Substack. That's it for me.
Yeah, find us. I think it's afronautspod.com is the website, right?
Yes.
And then anywhere podcasts are available, Afronauts podcast. Yeah, for me, so again, The Dividing Sky comes out this fall, October 8th, from Penguin Random House. And if you would like to add it to Goodreads, it's on NetGalley. For those of you who are on NetGalley, if you're a reviewer, please request and review. And if you'd like to pre-order it, it is available at www.thedividingsky.com. You can also just go to your local indie or wherever you'd like to buy, but there's a bookshop link on there as well. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at J2Writes, JTEW Writes, and on TikTok at Jill2.
And let's see. Well, do I want to plug anything? I do have a poem out. This wasn't gonna come out this month, but I do have a poem out with Nightmare Magazine out this month in May, and they're podcasting it. They're doing like an audio narrator and everything.
Ooh.
And that will come out at the end of this month, at the end of May. So I don't know. I forgot when this is coming out, but it'll be available by now. And I'm really excited. My poem is called The Southern Bells. And yeah, please go support Nightmare Mag. Also, in August, I'm going to be teaching with Voodoo Knots. I'm also a Voodoo Knots alum, but this year I am actually doing a class.
I love
and
that.
I'm so excited. Y'all pray for me. Doing one all about Southern Gothic, because that is, of course, my thing. That is my genre. And yeah, please support Voodoo Knots. Also, even just retweeting is so helpful. such an awesome space. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, I'm Beatrice Iker on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads.
Oh yeah, Threads.
Right. Fell off there, but it's okay.
I like Threads. Threads is not that bad. I don't know.
I always forget about it.
I like Threads.
I do
I like
too.
Threads. And it's got a pretty good author community
It
already.
does. I need to get on there.
It
more.
does.
Yeah, so shout out Threads.
Yeah.
Shout out. Apparently, we're sponsored by Threads. No, we're not.
Oh,
No, we're not.
Not
No,
sponsored.
No.
So no, that's perfect. And I will make sure that we include all those links in the notes in the channel because I need to continue my terms. Okay, so in this channel, so you all can click and subscribe and do all the lovely things to support the panelists and your fellow writers, because let's face it, you're in this together. So if you want more content similar to this topic, you should check out Writer's Quicksand, Analysis Paralysis from 2023 WriteHive Conference. Or if you're like, I don't want to be reminded of how I can't decide anything, maybe schedule your muse. You want tips for that? You should check out Scheduling Your Muse from 2020 WriteHive Conference. I know the moderator of that talk is pretty interesting. So thank you all so much for joining us. We had such a great time. We're going to talk more in the chat. Feel free to do the things that attendees do at conferences that are appropriate and
I was gonna
safe.
say not all the conferences.
With conditions.
Conditions may apply, Asher.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see ya. Stay creative, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye
Maggie.
bye.
Thanks for having us.